AEW Double or Nothing gave us blood, fire, tennis balls, and a hair versus title main event that was probably the most emotionally exhausting Darby Allin match he's ever had. This was one of those shows where AEW really reminded me why I love this company. Welcome to Swithbert Suplex Society. I'm Swithbert, and tonight we're talking Double or Nothing. Overall, I'm going to give this show an 8 out of 10. It's just 2 thumbs up, right? This felt like an awesome pay-per-view. The heels had a massive night, the chaos was super fun, and it all built up to MJF walking out as world champion for the 3rd time. Was everything perfect? No. Was it entertaining? Absolutely. And that is honestly what we all needed tonight. The buy-in started nice and wholesome. Renee Paquette and Mick Foley were in the ring, which is always a good way to ease into violence. The first match of the night, we saw Mega Cross against Zeta Steel and Viva Van. It was pretty good. The little countdown was going well, and I think they finally listened to me as far as, like, we needed someone to last longer than 2.5 minutes. Steel tried to run it down by doing laps around the outside. Van tried to do the same later on in the match, but Mega Cross they pulled it out in the end. Mega Cross ended the match with only 14 seconds left on the timer, and that's basically what I've been saying for the last 3 weeks. Get it down to nothing. Make it a nail biter. In the end, Mega Cross were going to hit Viva Van with something after the bell when Ty Mello and Anna Jay came running out with weapons. They chased Mega Cross off, and we moved straight into the next segment. Match 2 of the night, we saw the Death Riders take on the Ops, and it was exactly the kind of meat and potatoes wrestling that I think we all expect from those two groups. Anthony Bowens and Wheeler Yuta opened everything up, and they did a good job for the first couple of minutes. Then we got Hook and Garcia slapping each other for a little while until Shibata finally got tagged in, and he called out Claudio Castagnoli with a vengeance. So that was fun. Overall, it was a very solid match. It's probably not something that anybody's going to be talking about in 6 months, but it did really well on the buy-in, and everybody put in a fantastic effort. The Death Riders ended up with the win, which we all probably could have guessed, and it kept the buy-in moving gracefully. Match 3 of the buy-in was the conglomeration with Boom and Doom up against the Shane Taylor Productions. We get this type of match in every buy-in, so it's nothing super special. I don't think anybody was really rooting too hard against the conglomeration, obviously. We could all just tell that they were going to win, but we did see QT Marshall fall off the top rope to the floor after the Rizzler and Big Justice threw cocoa water at Shane Taylor Productions while they were all stacked up in the corner. But in the end, it didn't matter because, like I said, the conglomeration took the win and nobody was surprised. After the bell, Shane Taylor Productions surrounded the ring and they were going to hop in and start fighting everybody when we finally got the return of Eddie Kingston, and he brought Ortiz out with him and somebody named Mance Warner. I don't know a lot about that guy, but he seemed like he was cool with everyone in the ring. So it was a fine match, nothing to overthink, just we got what we got. The big moment for me, and for a lot of people I'm sure during the buy-in, was when Mick Foley was talking about Darby and MJF came out and they got into a war of words, and then MJF kicked Mick Foley in the balls. I don't think anyone was surprised that happened, but it was a fun little shock that maybe people weren't sure was going to happen. At the end of it all, Darby came running out and saved Mick from MJF. Foley grabbed his microphone again and was like, I love you. I only learned about you a month ago, but you're like the weird kid, and I was the weird kid, and you remind me of me, and you're awesome. And they just had this whole, like, kind of secondary Sting father figure moment, which was pretty interesting, and it rolled into later stuff in the show. And that takes us straight into the main show, which started with absolute violence. The first match of the proper pay-per-view was Cope and Cage versus FTR in the I Quit street fight. It was everything I hoped it would be, and then some. We had Stokely getting involved several times. We had Christian Cage using his half-busted arm with the fake cast on it in several different ways. We also had FTR focusing on that arm, putting it through a cinder block and then hitting the cinder block with a steel chair like that would do any damage. It's very funny stuff. At the end of the day, several people were bleeding. There were several hockey fights. Christian Cage wrapped barbed wire around the middle rope and then stood on top of Dax so that it cut his chest open a little bit. And then stole the referee's belt to whip both Dax and Cash. It was silly and amazing and just the kind of fun I was hoping it would be. There was even a point where the referee was asking Christian if he wanted to quit, and he said, no, I banged your mom. And then the entire crowd started to chant, oh, he banged your mama. And it was such silly ridiculousness. FTR looked real pissed at that, and it just made the win for Cope and Cage even better. We did also get to see the return of Beth Phoenix. She came out and helped a little bit. She put Stokely into the stairs before also getting pushed into the stairs. FTR set up a table and lit it on fire, and Cash was going to spear Beth through the ropes, or not even through the ropes because Stokely had dismantled the top rope. So over the middle rope into the flaming table, and Beth grabbed Stoke and pulled him into the line of fire. So Big Stoke and Cash went into this flaming table and basically took the two of them out for the rest of the match, which opened up Cope and Cage to put on a double submission on Dax, and then Beth grabbed Spike from underneath another set of stairs, and Cope put the spikes to Dax's forehead and started to cut him open a little bit, and then he screamed, I quit. That was the whole thing. Cope and Cage are the tag champions. This is going to last a little while longer, and I'm not mad at it because nostalgia is a thing. And then AEW went from weapon-fueled violence to two of the smoothest wrestlers alive trying to outcool each other. Okada versus Takeshita for the international title felt like two dudes fighting over who gets to be the final boss of professional wrestling. The match had kind of a slow opening while the crowd chanted "fuck Don Callis" as he sat down at the commentator's desk, but it ramped up so fast, and there was all kinds of shenanigans happening in and outside of the ring. We had a Rainmaker on the apron, a Brainbuster on the floor. We even had a Super Duperplex at one point that almost finished the match, but it really came down to the last bit of strength one of the guys could bring from the depths of their bowels. The whole thing ended with Takeshita hitting a fastball elbow right into Okada's gob and, knocking him out almost completely from what it looked like. After Takeshita got the win and was holding the title, Don Callis got in the ring, and Rocky Romero and Mark Davis came out and got in the ring. They helped Okada back to his feet. There was a little moment of animosity between the two of them before Okada was just like, yeah, all right, you got me. Cool, whatever. And it really looked like the Don Callis family was about to take out Takeshita when we got the second return of the night, and Kyle Fletcher was back all of a sudden. And he, in the pinkest suit I've seen with my own two eyes, walked down to the ring, got in, had Takeshita's back, got the Don Callis family to back off. He handed Takeshita the title with a big smile on his face, raised his hand in celebration, and then hit him with a clothesline and laid him out. After the Don Callis family walked to the back and Takeshita was helped to the back by staff, we rolled straight into the first round of the Women's Owen Hart Cup tournament, where it was Mina versus Athena. Personally, I'm a big fan of Athena. I think that a lot of the stuff that she does is super fun and super silly and super funny, and she's held the title for 1,500 frickin' days over on ROH. I did end up losing focus a couple of times just because they got into this weird ebb and flow where neither one of them quite had the upper hand, but then both of them had the upper hand, and there was a lot of reversals, and then it just kind of rolled back into one person hitting a big move and laying out for 37 seconds at a time. But it was fun to watch Athena not let Mina do any showboating for the most part. Athena really showed off her strength and doing some deadlifts of Mina and throwing her around a little bit. At one point, Athena got Mina in a almost surfboard hold and gave her a curb stomp dead center of the ring. But at the end of the day, we can all go to bed happy because Athena is moving on to the next round. She ended up hitting an O-face off the top rope even with her bum knee and got the 1, 2, 3. So I'm happy. You should be happy. We're all happy. Then we got a match that felt less like wrestling and more just like two men trying to delete each other's joints. We rolled straight into Jon Moxley versus Kyle O'Reilly for the Continental title, and they both just looked like they were enjoying hurting the other person. We all know that O'Reilly has Mox's number, at least from past experiences with 2 wins on Mox. But Mox has come back and said, I'm better than ever. Thank you for unlocking this new thing inside of me. You're never going to beat me again. They were reversing submission holds and reversing pins and reversing each other's offense just over and over and over again. It felt like it lasted 20 minutes with just reversals before finally Kyle O'Reilly just started to kick John in the leg, and John started to fire back the same way. So they were both just attacking each other's legs for a minute. John was getting little holds here and there and throwing some heavy elbows. O'Reilly was throwing some kicks that looked like they would have punted a toddler 20 feet. It was a very heavy match. There was nothing super flashy about it. It wasn't cute. It was just exhausting in an awesome way, and I felt like it just felt like a fight where every hold mattered and every escape costed something. I think we all could tell that Mox was going to pull through on this one and retain the title, which he did. So now Kyle can move on and focus more on being a trios champ, and we can get more conglomeration fun, and Mox can continue to train Ospreay or whatever it is that the Death Riders are doing right now, and new storylines can open up. Then came one of my favorite matchups on paper, Speed versus Murder. We had Will Ospreay versus Samoa Joe in the men's Owen Hart Cup tournament, and I couldn't believe how fast and how ridiculously Will Ospreay came onto the scene. Literally, before the bell even rang, he jumped off the middle rope and hit Joe with a cutter, and it just went uphill from there. Joe hit Ospreay with a shoulder tackle not long after that. They were just getting punched in the face over and over again. We had slaps and chops and all kinds of submissions being put on by both men. Ospreay wouldn't let up, and Joe wouldn't go down. Joe obviously was spending a lot of time focusing on Ospreay's neck, and Ospreay was doing everything he could to get Joe off of his feet for as long as possible, including hitting 2 hidden blades near the end after reaching the ropes while in the coquina clutch. It was just violence in one of the purest forms we've seen on AEW in a while. I truly had no idea which way this match was going to go, which was awesome for me because I was on the edge of my seat, literally this seat, the entire match. And Joe just felt super dangerous. Ospreay felt desperate, but in like a good way. And he ended up with the victory over Joe, so he's moving on in the tournament. After that was said and done, we moved immediately into the second match for the Owen Hart Cup tournament, which was Swerve Strickland versus Bandito, and I don't think these guys could wait to get their hands on each other. Swerve has been attacking Bandito randomly over the last 6 weeks or so. Bandito's been shooting back in promos and saying he's not to be messed with. And finally, we got these guys face-to-face in a ring to show what they're made of. And oh boy, did these 2 big, strong boys burn down the house. Bandito picked up Swerve at one point and did the one-handed over-the-head press and then tossed him over the top rope to the outside of the ring. Swerve got popped up by Bandito at one point and gracefully and agilely landed on his shoulders and then kicked him with a house call. I still don't understand how that worked. It was just a really strong match, and from top to bottom, loved every second of it. Both guys wrestled like they had something to prove. Swerve especially felt like he had to remind everybody that he's still not to be messed with, and he's one of the most dangerous people in the company. It was solid. It was aggressive. It kept everything flowing super well. It didn't even feel like it was like a 20-minute match, but it was. And we got Swerve with the victory at the end of it all, so he's moving on into the tournament, and he might have to go up against Bandito's best friend Brody King in the next round. So we're just going to have to find out what happens in the next coming weeks. Then came the women's title match, Fatal 4-Way, and it was everywhere. Tekla was jumping and kicking people. Statlander was showing that she's still probably the strongest pound-for-pound female in the company. Shida was trying to pull a lot of backhanded stuff, and it worked more often than not. And Hayter was just being Hayter. She was all over the place, punching people, kicking people, throwing things. It was just kind of a mess, but in a slightly fun way. Hayter and Stat were fist fighting in the middle of the ring at one point, and then Tekla climbed up to the top rope and tried to crossbody them both, and they caught her out of midair. And then as they turned, Shida was on another top rope in the corner, and she jumped and hit Tekla in the back with a missile dropkick and just took all three of the women out. Then she got up and was just like, yay, I'm Shida, like, whatever. Shida and Stat, even though that they've been tagging for the last several weeks, got into it a couple of times. Stat did a roll-up on Shida at one point. Shida put a submission move, I believe it was on Tekla, and Stat came over and grabbed her by the throat and picked her up and was like, don't you dare, this is my title. And then she threw Shida and turned around and hit Tekla with something and pinned Tekla, and then Shida grabbed her kendo stick and came over and hit Stat in the back with it to break up the pin. It was just kind of a catastrophe of silliness. But in the end, Tekla ended up with the victory just kind of by sheer chance luck, but also just because she was able to slide in at just the right time and hit Statlander by hitting Statlander with a curb stomp. So she retained the title. No complaints there. Again, I think the Triangle of Madness needs more gold on their waists, but they have to get through Megacross to even do that at this point. So we'll see what happens. I'm glad Tekla still has the title. It was a pretty good match overall. And then we got Stadium Stampede, and I'm going to pretend that I can review this match responsibly. I genuinely don't know how to review Stadium Stampede because this match was nonsense, and I mean that as a full compliment. Toa Leona was showing that he was a big, strong boy by holding the Young Bucks and Jack Perry all on his shoulders and hitting a triple Samoan drop. MVP broke a chain-held abdominal stretch with his cane and caused everybody outside the ring to fall over in a comical way. Jericho had a bag of tennis balls that he poured out and hit Ricochet with a suplex on. At one point, Toa Leona and Bobby Lashley were fighting backstage in a hallway somewhere, and Bobby was about to get his shit rocked when Blackheart Leo Rush came crawling out of the darkness and helped him beat up Toa. A food fight broke out in catering after Andrade ran into Satnam Singh and forced his head into his own plate of food. What? Andrade hit ringside at one point and was going to take a photo with some random women again, and Luchasaurus popped up in a blonde wig and hit him with the green mist. Connors was put inside of a shopping cart with a trash can on top of his head and then pushed down the entry ramp where Nick Jackson kicked his freaking head off. Jericho and Ricochet made it all the way to the back of the stadium where all the bay doors are, and Ricochet started hitting Jericho with a tennis racket. I don't understand what was going on with the tennis motif, but it worked, I guess. And after Jericho got hit a couple of times with the tennis racket, he pushed Ricochet off of him and popped a door open, and Luther was standing there with a comically large tennis racket that he then used to beat up Ricochet, and then turned on a tennis ball launching machine while Ricochet was up against one of the bay doors. At one point, Kenny Omega was handing out Snapdragon suplexes like it was candy on Halloween. And then to end it all, Bishop Khan got hit with a 7-way super kick party and then a lion salt. And Chris Jericho got the 1, 2, 3. His team wins. We all move on very happily. It was shenanigans. And to celebrate his victory, Chris Jericho jumped off the ring apron and into a table that hadn't been used during the match. It was definitely Spot Fest Central, but it worked because everybody seemed completely committed to the stupidity, and I was just smiling ear to ear the entire time. Just goofy wrestling for life, man. Then we took a breather for about 37 seconds. And after all the chaos, we still somehow got hit with an emotional nuclear bomb. The main event felt like emotional manipulation, violence, and self-destruction, all fighting over the same world title. As soon as the bell rang, Darby hit 3 headlock takeovers for a 2 count every time on MJF. MJF skittered out of the ring after the 3rd one, and Darby went to hit him with a dive and instead just hit his head on the floor. Here's a clip. I'm going to pause the video right here to show you that somehow Darby hit his feet on the top rope and then landed like this. That's the best screenshot I could find. I honestly thought he kind of killed himself in that moment, but he rallied back and took the fight back into the ring, and him and MJF just had a slobber knocker of a time until MJF got the upper hand, flipped a set of stairs on their side, and hit Darby with a pile driver on the stairs. It was not anything unheard of from MJF, but I wasn't expecting it to be as thunky as it sounded. After Darby got himself back together and they got back in the ring and they were fighting some more, Darby knocked MJF out of the ring, went to do another dive, and this time MJF grabbed a cameraman and pulled him in the way. Here's a clip. That dude took that bump like a champ. Don't know the guy's name. They said it once, I think, during the whole pay-per-view. But he took the hit and he tried to continue to get the shot. And that is professionalism, ladies and gentlemen. Bryce Remsburg, the referee, was being very liberal with his counts on the outside of the ring because everybody wanted this match to end with a good spot and not by countout. And so MJF and Darby ended up at the top of the entry ramp at one point. MJF grabbed the pair of clippers and he looked like he was going to try and shave Darby's head. Darby reversed it, hit MJF with a couple of moves, and then put him on top of the table where the clippers were laying. Then scaled the scaffolding like frickin' Spider-Man and jumped. And then broke the back of his head open somewhere on the stage. Not even sure how he did it, but when he came back to camera view after rolling away, the whole back of his head was just gushing blood. They ended up getting back in the ring about 90 seconds later. It really took a minute for Darby to get his shit together, grab MJF, and pull him all the way back down the entry ramp. And when they did, Darby put MJF in the Scorpion Deathlock, and then he passed out in the ring. MJF kind of came back and figured out what was going on and was going to go and just try to annihilate Darby as quick as possible to get the win. When Darby got a second wind, he hit a couple of coffin drops at that point. It was very good back and forth stuff. He went to go hit another coffin drop, and MJF stopped him, climbed up to the top rope with him, hit him with an avalanche tombstone, and that was it. That was the whole thing. MJF is on his 3rd reign as AEW World Champion. I'm happy. The world should be happy. Darby did an amazing job the last little while as champion. Now he needs to simmer down. He needs to go take a vacation. He needs to go sip mimosas on a beach somewhere and just fucking relax, man. You can't keep doing this stuff and expect to hold a title for more than, 6 weeks now? It's crazy, my dude. Take a break. After MJF won, the medical team came over, pulled Darby out of the ring, put him on a stretcher, and they were going to get him out of there when MJF stopped him, stood on top of Darby, held the title up high, and then Kevin Knight came running out to save Darby. He chased MJF off, and when MJF got up to the top of the ramp, Kevin was standing on the top turnbuckle like mad dogging him, and then he looked down, and there was Darby on the stretcher. And guess what? First thought of every good guy in the company when they see one of their friends laying dead on a gurney is, you know what? I'm going to hit that guy with a splash. And he did. He hit him with the UFO splash while he was on the gurney, then flipped the gurney over on its side. And MJF was shocked. I was shocked. Everybody in the audience was shocked. Nobody knew what to do. The place went dead quiet. It was ridiculous. But MJF escaped. He's got his title back. All is right with the world. So we will see what happens over the next couple of weeks with all the fallout from Double or Nothing. And I'm really hoping that we get some good stuff in the pipeline. I loved that the finish didn't make Darby look weak, though. He passed out fighting. He got back up. He still had finishers to attempt. And then he just got shut down a little too fast. And that's fine. Don't worry about it. I am fine with MJF holding the title for the third time. And we just need more shenanigans. The Stadium Stampede match was insane. Mox versus O'Reilly was super fun to watch. I'm totally happy. I give the whole pay-per-view an 8 out of 10. We could have used more blood, but I'm a psycho. So, with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll see you Wednesday night with the next episode. Don't do anything too crazy like Darby Allin. Take care of yourselves. Peace.